Welcome to She Sells Radio. I tell you what, my friend, if you want to learn how to generate consistent and lots of inbound leads, today is the episode for you. So my guest today is an incredible, incredible guy. And yes, I said guy. So Alex B Sheridan is actually the first man I have interviewed for She Sells Radio, which is so fun. And it's funny, as I record this, I actually have my second guy lined up to come on tomorrow. So we're bringing in the men. I'm so excited for that. You know, I love highlighting and featuring you ladies and highlighting women specifically who are crushing it in sales and in business. But I also love bringing in the men who can help teach us and help us grow. And my guest today is absolutely that person. So Alex B Sheridan, let me tell you about what this guy did. He started off, so he's a LinkedIn video content creator and just a pro at this. He started off with 0 followers in 2019. And in 6 months, he had generated enough income to leave his 6-figure corporate job. And now he teaches other entrepreneurs, founders, coaches, consultants how to use LinkedIn video content specifically to grow their businesses and generate leads. And I loved this conversation because we went both pragmatic and tactical, as well as more mindset. So, in the pragmatic and tactical part, he tells you, oh my gosh, it's so much. He tells you, how do you blend education and entertainment in your videos? How do you use content marketing to generate leads, but not be overtly salesy? And he gives so many good tips. He also tells you how many outbound connection requests you should be sending every day in 2021, which I thought was really useful. And I hadn't heard it before. So much good information there. Like literally you can take what he teaches in this interview and go out and craft your LinkedIn strategy. But then we also get into a lot of the mindset piece, you know, especially for a lot of us women. There can be insecurities around being on video. And a lot of Alex's strategy is around video. And so I dug in with him because he's a dad of 2 daughters. And I really wanted his perspective on how to show up confidently on video and how he kind of coaches his female clients versus his male clients to do that. And he just had some really, really good advice that I'm excited for you to learn. So I think you're going to love this episode. I think you're going to love learning from Alex. So get ready to enjoy it. And then, as always, I would love to invite you into She Sells All Access. So if you want great, high quality weekly sales training from yours truly, coming straight to your inbox, head over to ElyseArcher.com/training to join our super affordable membership. It's $28 a month, no month to month, or excuse me, no long-term contract. It's all month to month. You can join and get access to our entire library of past sales training videos. And then there's a new one coming out every week as well. So again, that's ElyseArcher.com/training if you want to grow your sales in all areas. But today, if you are looking to specifically grow on LinkedIn, you are going to love learning from my guest, Alex B Sheridan. Let's dive in and hear from Alex. Alex, I am so excited to have you on She Sells Radio. And you may not know this, but this is kind of a big deal because you were actually the first man to be interviewed on
What?
She Sells Radio. I know. So welcome.
I'm happy to be here. I'm extra pumped now. I did not know that. So thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. All the podcasts I've done in the past have been for really a mixed audience. And then when I launched She Sells Radio last year, it was just, you know, my kind of my heart and my mission had moved to really serving women. Funny enough, behind the scenes, I still work with a lot of men, but publicly, my brand's more for women. So I've been interviewing just a lot of women so far. But then you stood out, my friend, because I think we got connected through Shireen Washington, who was on the podcast previously, and just a dynamite
Oh,
sales professional and trainer and business owner. And you had commented, and then you sent me a LinkedIn connection request, and you sent me a video, and I was like, this man knows what he's talking about. He walks his talk. You stood out immediately. And then you also mentioned that you're a dad, I think, to 2 girls. Is that right?
yeah. Few hours. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, we got to have him on. So I'm so excited to have you. And thank you for taking the time to come on and help us just learn how to rock LinkedIn and video content creation.
Thanks. I'm pumped to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah. So I want to hear your story because you have done something that I think many people want to do. And my audience it's corporate and it's entrepreneurs. So not everybody is trying to leave corporate. But for anyone who has wanted to run their own business, from what I know about you, in 2019, you were able to launch your own business, right? You started with 0 followers in 2019. 6 months later, you were generating enough income to quit your 6-figure corporate job and go full time
Yes.
into what you're doing. So the question I and everyone who's listening wants to know is how? How the heck did you do it? So
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah, I'll give you the backstory because there's not one single thing, right? There's not one
Yeah.
magical thing that I can tell somebody, but I'll give you kind of the backstory. So I was working a corporate job and I was working in sales. I was building territories from basically the ground up. I was doing a lot of cold calling, a lot of emailing, going to actual physical sites, and calling on prospects and that kind of stuff, your typical sales B2B type stuff. And I always had this burning desire that I wanted to have a bigger impact on the world. I wanted to have a voice. I wanted to speak to people. I wanted to inspire people. And I thought creating my own company, there was something exciting about building something from the ground up that I was really excited about. And where I came from was a large company, and no knock on large companies. There's a lot of great ones out there. And so was my company, but I didn't have the creative freedom to do some of the things that I wanted to do with content, with my processes, with how I handle customers, that kind of stuff. So I started my own company in September 2019. And I say company, but it was basically a website, a crappy website in a logo, right? It wasn't really a company, but to me it was. And I didn't have any clients or anything like that. And I started, I'm going to help other companies grow their business and generate more revenue because I had pretty good sales training and background. So I figured I'll teach some of the smaller companies that maybe don't have those systems and processes in place and teach them how to be rock star salespeople. Well, I started posting on LinkedIn. And not instantly, but pretty soon after that, I noticed that people were starting to engage with my content and reach out to me. And it wasn't like I was winning business hand over foot. I didn't even really have a product at that standpoint. So I wasn't like making a ton of money at that point, but it was enough of a spark that caused me to think, hold on, there's something to this. There's something like, I think sales is changing. I think marketing is changing. And I think a place like LinkedIn and creating video content, building your personal brand, getting people to come to you, getting the customers to actually pay attention to what you're doing because you're adding so much value and you're popping up in their feed. I'm like, there's something big to this. And I just pictured the world kind of going more virtual and digital. And this was like literally a couple months before COVID happens, right?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so I pivot. So I'm like, all right, I'm not going to do the sales consulting route anymore, although that's still kind of part of what I do to a certain extent because we're trying to close deals, win customers. But I said, I'm going to go more towards the content marketing side, specifically on video, specifically to start off with on LinkedIn.
And is
Then,
that just a real quick question? Is that
yeah.
what you said you were posting on LinkedIn? Were you posting specifically videos? Is that primarily what you were doing?
Yes. Yeah, it
Okay.
was all
Yeah.
video content. And I was like, my whole thing was like, I'm going to unleash my creative.
Mm.
I'm not going to hold back. I'm not going to show up as the corporate Alex B Sheridan person because that's not who I am. I'm going to show up as myself, and I'm going to bring my authentic self to LinkedIn, and I'm going to add some humor, and I'm going to do some skit stuff, and I'm going to, showcase some things that I felt like were just unique to me that everyone has. We all have unique things and personality traits and talents. And I encourage people to use those in their content. So I pivot, I start this business. I'm like, all right, luckily I was redoing my crappy website at the time or having somebody else do it in the logo and all that stuff. So I was like, all right, hey, I'm making a change. I'm not going to do the sales consulting route. I'm going to do the content marketing route. And so that was basically January 2020. February, I win my first customer, and it was a very small customer, 3 hours of working with them, consulting, showing them how to up their LinkedIn game, do videos, that kind of stuff. I was so excited. I remember exactly where I was.
It's
I was
huge.
raising my hands in the lobby of a hospital because that's where I was for my full-time job at the time. And I was so pumped because when you get your first customer, it's just like amazing. It feels so great.
Yeah.
And then literally 6 months later, I was I was making more at my side hustle doing the content marketing than I was at my full-time job. I had replaced that 6-figure weekly income. And I got to a place where I was like, both of them were requiring too much from me. I couldn't do, it's like being in a relationship with two people. It just doesn't work, right? You need to give a lot to one of those people or one of those businesses, and you can do it for a certain period of time. But eventually, if it really starts to grow and happen, you have to make a choice. There's only so much time in the day, and your focus is all over the place when you're in two businesses. So I had to choose that I was going to go full time in my side business and turn it in full time in July 2020. And here we are.
That's so, and you did this over COVID nonetheless,
Yeah.
right? When everyone else is going into scarcity mode and fear. And I mean, I would imagine with what you do, it's actually even more important than ever. Like, and business owners are kind of waking up to that as well. But it's so powerful. And I've seen the power in my own business of video content and just being visible, and how incredible LinkedIn can be for a lot of the people you serve, right? Coaches, consultants, business owners, founders, entrepreneurs. So I'm curious to get into, from your perspective, Alex, what would you say, like, what are some of the top 2 to 3 mistakes that you see people making with LinkedIn content or video marketing?
Well, the biggest one is people are posting about their company or their product or service, or they're sharing a corporate article that was not written with any context for that target audience or for what's going on. And so it's really just kind of the content's not very good, or it's very self-focused or company focused. And not to say that you can't get on here and craft creative messages that do showcase what you do, because you have to be intentional. You have to get on here and make sure that people understand exactly what you do and how you can help them and that kind of stuff. But your content should be revolved around creating value for your target audience, AKA your potential customers. So you want to provide tips, strategies, techniques, tactics, insights, all that type of stuff in the form of content, video, text, picture. I'm a big fan of mixing it up too, where you're giving people different angles. So you're showing them a little bit of an entertaining way to show value. You're showing them the educational side. You're motivating, you're inspiring. And I think when you combine all those three, that's when people really, it really starts to resonate.
I love that. What would you say? So for somebody who says, how can I be entertaining, especially on LinkedIn, right? Maybe they think they're not naturally funny or a great storyteller,
Yeah.
or maybe they have like a limiting belief around LinkedIn is strictly business and really professional. What would you say to someone who's
Yeah.
trying to inject more entertainment and that type of value into their video content?
Yeah, it's a great question. And everyone has, as I kind of mentioned earlier, everyone has their own unique talents and personality traits that they could bring out. Some people are great storytellers. Some people are great interviewers. And so there's the podcast to play the interview style that works really well. Some people do have humor, they're quirky. Like everyone has unique things that they can bring out to their content. But here's an example, because sometimes people are like, wow, I want my videos to be entertaining and creative, but I don't feel like I could do what you do. And I'm like, well, you don't have to. It's just about doing things that are innovative, things that are different than no one else is doing. So if you're in sales, like let's say you're a sales consultant or coach, right? Like kind of like your industry, one thing you could do is hold live role plays or do a live sales call, right?
Mm.
Something that's entertaining for people to watch, specifically for salespeople. They love to see that stuff. How cool it'd be to do a sales role play. And you could do it with yourself. You could do it with somebody else. You could add some humor. You can not add some humor. You can make it a live thing where you bring an audience in. You do a live LinkedIn show and you bring in people and you do live role plays. Like there's all types of things that people could do in their industry, in their niche, that are just things that nobody else is doing. And that cause, if you want your content to really take off, the faster, like the more creative you get, and still it brings a lot of value to your audience, the faster you're going to grow.
That's so good. I love that. I love that. And it makes me think about a quote, Sally Hogshead, author of Fascinate, says, different is better than better. And part of what I love about what you're doing is it's sometimes I think when we hear entertaining, at least for me, I go into, oh man, well, what if if I don't have a great joke to tell, or I don't have
Right.
something that's like, movie quality. But really what I'm hearing you say is it's how can it be different? How can it
Yes.
be unique? How can you stand out? Which I think is a really helpful kind of reframe of
Yes.
what you mean by that. Now, the other thing that I think a lot of times people are curious about is, so if I'm putting out content that's just like value, 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 when is the ask? How does this actually translate into getting customers?
Yeah. Great question. I'll give you a good example from today's video. So I put out a video from today. It's is being niche an advantage or disadvantage, which my customers sometimes say they'll complain, or not my customers, but prospects of mine. I'll hear complain about, hey, I'm really niche. I'm not sure if LinkedIn or social media can work for me because I sell medical devices or I sell pharmaceutical, certain things that would only be sold to a certain demographic or a certain target. And I'm like, that's actually your advantage. And so I did a whole video about it. But at the end of the video, at the end of the post, I talk about a live webinar that I'm hosting next week that I'll record and it'll be available forever. But I basically am funneling people through a webinar where I'm, again, giving them value for 20, 30 minutes. We'll do a Q&A session. I'll talk about the power of LinkedIn, the importance of it, how to capitalize on it, things that you can do, actionable tips that'll help you grow your business and win clients on LinkedIn. It's straight up value. But then at the end of that, I'll have a landing page or a funnel into some of the things that I offer. And again, you can take them or you can leave them. It doesn't matter. But either way, I'm generating more awareness. People now know who I am. I'm building an email list that I can retarget and send more information and more value out to folks to try to drive them to become a customer. That's one way. Another way could be you have a newsletter Another way could be you have, a website that you want to take people to where you've got more videos or content or landing pages, things like that. It could be even as simple as I use a lot of times, send me a message if you're curious about this. So if you're a sales rep and you do a video on, let's say you sell a medical device and you say, hey, there's this new, there's a few ways that you need to think about purchasing medical devices when you purchase them. One, you need to think about this. Two, here's a search engine that you can search all medical devices and get ratings on them. Three, you do this, this, and this. And then at the end, in the comments, you could say, hey, if you're curious on how more of this stuff works or how to get involved in some of this, reach out to me. I'd love to chat with you. Right. And then you're setting up a Zoom conversation, or, it could be a face-to-face, but it's COVID. So most of them are Zoom. But that's how it works. So the goal is always to take the conversation off of LinkedIn. But LinkedIn is just the starting place where you can build trust and credibility at scale and then convert that to actual conversations.
I love that. Yeah. And one question too, so I want to get really specific with this. So you mentioned, I love that you brought up, like, if you're a sales rep and you don't necessarily, like, you're not going to create your own webinar probably to drive people to, you could totally, right? You absolutely, and I love your thought there, you could, but even if you don't have that, or you're not going to create that, you can just say, hey, like, reach out to me directly. Yes. You mentioned you could say that in the comments. Are you saying specifically we would want to put the call to action in the comments, or is it okay to put it like in the actual video or somewhere in the description?
Yeah, you could do both. You could post it in the actual post itself, which is fine, or you could put it in the comments. The comments is always interesting because people typically will, and your comment usually pops up first, so it's right there. But typically people, especially lurkers, they'll kind of fish through the comments a little bit. Like today I did both. I put it at the end of my post. It wasn't in the video itself, but it was at the end of the text portion of the post. And then I also dropped it in the comments. So some people read that text, some people don't, but everyone watched the video. And so the, first place you go after watching a video is typically the comments or the text post, and it's both. It's in both places. So, you have to be intentional. You can't just hop on LinkedIn, create content, and have no strategy to convert that into a conversation or into customers. If that's your main objective of being on LinkedIn, which most of us are on LinkedIn to win customers and build our brand, let's just be honest. And you can do a lot of amazing things in the process, and without being salesy. And, I don't hit people up, out of nowhere and just try to pitch them my stuff, because that's the wrong approach. But you do have to have intention. You do have to say, where am I going to take this customer or this potential customer? How do I want to make them feel with my content? Which, in sales, we always say, you buy with emotion and then justify with logic, right? Well, if you're putting out content that's just logical, and it's just tips and actionable stuff, and that's all you do, and you're not appealing to the emotional appeal of a human being, I think you're missing a big opportunity. So that's why I encourage people to inject some fun, some entertainment, some humor, some whatever, a live sales call, whatever it is. Get people to sort of feel it, to say, wow, this is kind of interesting. This is cool. Then they get bought in, and then they justify meeting with you or buying from you because it's logical. Oh, this person can actually help my business. This person can actually help me increase my sales.
Yeah. And I love what you said there about that question. I actually haven't really thought about my content much through that frame, but how do I want to make someone feel as a result of watching this, which is so good, right? That's people want to be moved emotionally, whether that's they want to feel excited or energized, or they want to feel happy, or sometimes we watch stuff that's really like, it pulls on our heartstrings and is sad, right? But it touches us. We want to be moved emotionally. So I think that's such a great question to ask before creating content. One other thing, I'm curious if you train your clients on how to do this, because I know for me, when I started doing more LinkedIn content years ago, one of the things I noticed was I would just start to get more inbound connection requests. And my approach has always been to be an open networker. I kind of think if you only accept connection requests from people you already know, it's like going to a networking event, but only talking to you probably say this, right? Only talking to the people you know. So I would always accept, as long as they look like a real person, but then I would send a follow-up message finding out what prompted the request. And I found like 30% of them were actually viable potential clients who were like, I've been following your videos. I'm really interested in what you do. I'm looking for a sales coach, and I thought it would be worthwhile to connect. It's like, I was never going to know that because they didn't put it in their message. So do you have a strategy? Do you do something similar with connection requests, or like, what do you train your clients to do there?
Yeah, for sure. So the connection request that you send, you want to make sure that you or someone on your team, or you have some system around sending connection requests daily, right? Anywhere from, 30 to 75 connection requests daily. depending on where you're at.
30 to 75.
Yeah, like you can't
Okay.
ramp up too quickly because LinkedIn will slap you on the wrist, you know.
Do you
And
do,
you can't do too many. I think so, it's 75, 100, somewhere around there is a range where you start getting a little bit in risk world where they'll be like, okay, you're sending out a lot of connection requests. So you got to make sure it's not overly spammy or anything, because you can only send out so many open requests at one time. I believe it's 3,000. But then also if a certain percentage of people are not accepting them, then LinkedIn reads that as, okay, you're spamming because you're sending a lot of connection requests and hardly anyone's accepting them. So you
yeah.
just got to have a targeted approach, make sure it's not pitchy, but you should be connecting with people daily, whether that's 20, 30, 40, 50 people a day in your target audience. So if your target audience is, in the, let's say, med device space, like you want to target the managers of these med device companies, those are the people you want to connect with per day. And then in terms of accepting connection requests, that's where I think you open it up a little bit and you go a little bit more broad, because you don't want to stay. I mean, to me, you could just stay in your niche, but then you may be missing out on an opportunity for other people that would want to consume your content that helps build the social proof of people that maybe came in and reacted to your video. They sent you a connection request. Well, if you don't accept it just because they're not in your niche, that's a fan. That's not a supporter of your content. So that's my philosophy. Be super intentional with what you put out there, but coming in, screen a little bit, but be more open to who you accept.
That's so good. Yeah. So it's the inbound and outbound. Now
Mm-hmm.
on the outbound, do you automate that? Or are you doing that manually? Like what's your, because 30 to, you said
No,
30
I
to
have a team.
75.
I have a team that handles a lot of that stuff. I mean, you're
Okay.
with LinkedIn, you got to be careful because you're not supposed to have somebody doing anything for you in your account. So it's like
Yeah.
kind of hush, but just like I would video editing and graphic designing, I have
Sure.
team, people that handle certain things that are outsourced and part of the squad, and they do their own thing. But
Yeah.
you could do that, or if you didn't, if you're a sales rep, it's super easy. If you got Sales Navigator, which I'd recommend that everyone has, especially if you're in sales, it's just a go-to. We can talk more about that if you want, but have Sales Navigator. You can go in there and you can connect with people. Just do a quick Boolean search and you can connect with people in your industry. You can send 40, 50 connection requests in a matter of a minute. It's not very time consuming. And then while you're in there, spend some time engaging with those folks in your target audience too. Don't just engage in your newsfeed where you see all your friends.
Yeah.
Make sure that you spend time engaging in the audience that you want to become customers.
This is so good. Oh my gosh, I love this. Thank you. This is so good. This is why you are so awesome at what you do. It's like a little mini masterclass. So I want to ask, because I would keep you here all day asking about this if I could, but I'm going to respect your time. And I want to ask specifically about men versus women,
Yeah.
especially when they create video content. So that's part of why I'm so excited to have you and have your perspective here, is that I work with both male and female clients, and I've found oftentimes, especially for women, they can get more tripped up about just how they look, how they come across, right? That fear of judgment of not doing the video perfectly. So I would love, 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 love if you could share your perspective and thoughts on maybe how men approach video differently than women typically in what you see, and um, how women can up their game and their confidence specifically on video.
Yeah. It's funny because there's between men and women, I mean, everyone struggles. I should say most people struggle, especially in the beginning, with putting themselves out there, right? And it's
Mm.
typically like, oh gosh, I'm scared. They overthink it. They run to perfectionism, which is really just a mask of insecurity. Because when you say that I want it to be perfect, it really just means that I'm scared that if it's not perfect, I'll be judged,
Ooh,
and that
yeah.
I won't be seen in the same light anymore. I'll be devalued as a person, and that's just not the case. There's no such thing as perfectionism. We're just trying to make progress. So if you haven't put out any video content, you putting out one video, regardless of how it does this week, is progress. And that's what you want to chase towards, right? Now you're putting out a couple videos. And so now how do you up the game from there? Can you put out more? Can you up the quality? Can you get more intentional with it? Then it's like, all right, are you generating revenue from it? If you're not, okay, can I get help doing that? What do I need to do to make sure it does convert to customers? But you're just kind of continuing to make progress, whether you're male or female. On the female side, from a women's standpoint, what I've seen from working with women clients is that women a lot of times think they need to look a certain way to show up on camera.
Mm.
Because oftentimes they'll literally tell me, hey, women will be like, hey, I need to do my hair. I need to have this done. If I don't, I just got out of the shower, whatever it is. They're
Mhm.
like, guys can just pop on camera whenever they want and they can look the part. Women, it's a totally different deal. And I think that that's in women's head. I truly
Mm.
believe that. I do not
Amen.
think
Preach it.
Women, if y'all are listening right now, you guys are beautiful inside and out. You don't have to show up a certain way. I mean, if people are going to judge you by how good your hair looks that day, those are not the people that you want in your tribe. Those are not the people that you want in your community. Those are not the people that you want as customers. Now, what I don't mean is show up like, none of us should show up like a slob, right? Like, we got to be respectable, obviously. But to think that you need to look a certain way, I'm telling you, it's just in your head. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit behind the scenes, but some of your best posts are the most authentic ones that you've ever done. So I would just encourage people to really, you don't need validation from anyone else. Love yourself, know that you're amazing, and the things that you have to say and your character is what people care about most, rather than just your hairdo.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It's so true. And to the point you just made, when I think about my own videos that have done best, they're actually always without makeup, which is really frustrating to me because I'm a makeup girl and I like my makeup. But I told you this in the pre-chat, and I've shared this on the, on the podcast before. Like, my best video last year was right after I had skin cancer surgery, and I had this massive black eye and no makeup, and it blew up. And then even just in the past month and a half, I'd made a big decision about just really pushing myself outside of my comfort zone with my business this year and going for a major revenue goal. And it was post workout. I was sweaty. I had no makeup. I cried in the video too. And it was like that. People are still coming to me talking about that. And I think it's just because it's real.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Like, I could have done it with makeup on, and if it had been real, it probably would have been about the same. But it's people, I don't know about you, but a lot of times I'll hear from people like, how do you get more engagement? And how do you get more comments? And I think above and beyond hashtag strategy and editing, it's when you record your content, can you feel it in your heart? Like, does it actually move you? That's what does best. And there's no science or algorithm to that.
Right. That is. That's why my creative videos that I drop every Monday have outperformed. I mean, not even close to my other videos in terms of engagement, views, and leads, inbound leads. So because it makes people feel a certain way, right? It's not just me saying, like, an interview style. These are great. And even that last part could make someone feel a certain way. So that's great. But you really have to tap into the emotion. People forget, this is a business platform, but we're all humans. Every single person on LinkedIn or on social media or in a business is just a person. And we all have emotion. We're all very emotional creatures. That's just how we are. We think about that stuff. So to not appeal to that is just missing a ginormous opportunity. And I don't think enough people have sort of caught on and are appealing to the emotional side of things. And that's why I encourage people to unleash their creative, because we all have that within us. So it's a question of, how are you going to make people feel? How are you going to pull that out and drive that home? And then you have logical things in place that make people say, okay, this makes sense though. This person's profile's optimized. They've got other content. They've got case studies, video testimonials. They're proven. This makes sense. But you pull people in with emotion.
Yeah. I love that. That's so good. It's so good. So I want to ask you one more question, but before I do, I want to know, where can people go to connect with you? I know you've got a webinar on how to win clients with LinkedIn. So I'd love if you could tell people about where they can get that, where they can see your incredible video content, and then we'll wrap.
Yeah, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn, because that's where I spend most of my time when it comes to social media. So connect with me, send me a message request. And then I've got the webinar that's coming up, and I'm going to be running webinars throughout the year. Some will be live, some will be recorded, but they're going to show people step by step how to win clients on LinkedIn, the power of LinkedIn right now, why you need to get on LinkedIn right now, and really what to do with this opportunity, because it is here, and this is going to be huge. LinkedIn is not going away. It's only going to get bigger. More people are going to jump on it. I think especially this year. A lot of people jumped on last year, but I think this is the year where it's kind of like the gold rush. And so, get on here and stake your claim and build the real estate before everyone else gets here. That's the goal. So that's it.
Absolutely. And so if someone wants to find out about that webinar, do they just send you a message on LinkedIn?
Yeah, send me a message, or I'll have it on my website. So impacts.com, or my email address, asheridan@impacts.com.
Perfect. So final question for you, my friend. My mission and my goal, I mean, this show it's about sales, but really I feel like sales is kind of the Trojan horse of helping women learn how to trust themselves and just step into their own personal power. So as a dad of daughters, I'm just curious, what advice would you give to your daughters to help them learn to trust themselves as they grow up?
I think to trust yourself, and we're kind of talking about the self-confidence piece here, is you have to, because I think it starts with self-love. You have to learn to
Mhm.
respect and love yourself. And I teach, my daughters are 7 and 4, and I literally had a conversation yesterday about how you shouldn't care what somebody else thinks of your t-shirt or whatnot. Really, if you feel good about what you're doing and you feel good inside, that's all that matters. Everything else externally is just an add-on. So if you welcome somebody else in your life, they enhance, right? Or they should enhance your life, if not get them out. But it's not making your life. They're not filling a void. If you get reactions and comments on your videos and your content, great, that enhances, but it doesn't make or break how you should feel as a human being. So I think it starts there. But then when you're talking about building trust, it's like anything. Trust is built over time. It's built over repetition. You trust something that you know it's going to happen. You know, if you pick up the phone and call your husband or a family member or a close friend, that they're going to be there for you if you need them. Why do you trust that? Because it's happened, because they've proven it, right? So I think I am a fan of giving people trust in the beginning, and it's yours to either build or lose, right? And
Mm.
so you start off with a little bit of trust, and then it builds. And so when you're talking about building self-confidence or trust in yourself, make yourself proud, commit to doing things, and then follow through with those things that you say that you're going to do. That's the biggest problem that a lot of people have with low self-esteem or low self-confidence. They haven't made, either one, they haven't made a commitment to themselves to change or to do something positive, or two, they've made it so many times and they just haven't gone through with it. And so now they don't really believe in themselves, they don't even trust themselves. So it takes work. It takes a lot of work. And again, you got to focus on progress, not perfection.
Yeah, that's so good. I love what you said. Make yourself proud. That is, that moves
If
me, my
anybody,
friend.
if there's
Yeah.
anybody that you should be making proud, it should start with yourself.
Yeah.
When your bucket is full, like they say, you can give so much to other people. When your bucket's empty, pretty tough to give and share.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. And that's something that, man, woman, whatever you identify as, like just learning to really, really, like you said, make yourself proud, identify the things throughout your day that you're proud of that you did. Maybe it's making your first video.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the most important stuff. So Alex, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
generosity. I learned so much from you today, and I know that my listeners did as well. And everyone, go check out Alex, go follow him, look for those Creative Monday videos. And if nothing else, just to learn from how he does it, but definitely check out his webinars, get connected with him on LinkedIn. And I appreciate you, my friend. This was really, really wonderful today.
Thank you. My pleasure.